So this video is going to be about manifesting health, particularly that of mental health, or at least I'm going to share from my personal experience of manifesting healing from PTSD and trauma, because I was talking about how I manifested my perfect person, perfect relationship. And of course, having been in the state of PTSD, the particular trauma I had encountered started to affect the relationships that I was having yet again. So I'm going to share with you guys how to help yourselves to heal from trauma that might be hindering you from experiencing that perfect relationship, either with your ideal person, your ideal match, someone you haven't met yet, or perhaps it's a specific person that you've got in mind. Thank you, Coco. Me and my lovely assistant here to help you out today, my therapy dog. And how you can turn this around essentially so that you don't take the old baggage from the past into your current future relationships going forward, because I know that for many of us these traumas tend to shape who we are, our concept of self, and tend to shape how we view relationships, and our experiences of them are therefore affected by it. And I know that I've dealt with a lot of clients who have had similar issues and have managed to overcome them in order to manifest their SP back. So I'm going to share with you how I did it in this specific case. And also I just want to thank all of you who had commented on my last video, sharing your questions for the Q&A video that I'm going to put together. Lots of questions, lots of stuff to sift through. I'm probably going to break it up into a couple of videos, so stay tuned for that, and I will answer as many questions as I possibly can. First up, just want to thank all of you. I'm Athena Raven. I'm a mental health and manifestation life coach here to empower and inspire all of you who are on this manifestation journey, who are having a bit of a hard time with it. And I'll always try to simplify it based on my own experiences and that of my clients as well. So if you find this helpful, please do like, subscribe, share this as well if you feel that it would help anyone who was in a similar predicament as well, who could benefit from this manifesting health, healing. And I love and appreciate every single one of you for your constant support and for being here. Thank you. So my journey, it's been a turbulent one. Like I say, 20 odd years now I've been on this manifestation journey, manifested numerous things. And I have shared in previous videos as well how I had healed myself from, was like a heart issue. I was having issues with palpitations, and how I manifested those away because it was debilitating. And it's the same with anything. You can apply this to all sorts of things, but particularly in this case, traumas of the past. My story in particular was quite, well, it was a horrific situation that unfolded. And you see, it doesn't matter how fantastic a manifester you are, it doesn't matter how experienced you are always going to encounter some sort of event that would seem at the time undesirable, that would seem just awful. And I know that this was one of those circumstances. But of course, now in hindsight, having freed myself from the chains of PTSD, from that concept of self, having healed myself, having realized that I needed to go through that trauma in order to have manifested 3 of my major manifestations, one of them being to go international with my business. And so if it wasn't for that incident, I wouldn't be here living out one of my dream goals, which was to do this, to be sharing this with you guys, to be seeing other people succeed and heal and manifest their dreams and desires based on the kind of content I am putting out or the kind of coaching that I am providing. This was always my goal. So remember, this is why circumstances, even your traumas or health issues that you are encountering, sometimes it serves a purpose, part of the bridge of instance to your major manifestations. And this is why we don't judge the bridge. This is why we view the bridge and events in the bridge as neutral, because trying to understand it, usually it's past finding out. God's ways are past finding out, right? So we're not even going to try and understand what this is at the time. You never understand it when you're on the bridge. It's only really in hindsight that you can piece a lot of this stuff together, if you're so inclined. And a lot of us don't anyway. Once we've got our desire, we've moved on to the next thing and we've forgotten all about the bridge. But anyway, I've actually written down a little list so I can break down everything that I did in order to heal. You see, I had manifested the end of my last long-term relationship. I could have made him conform. I could have changed the dynamics of it, but I had grown over those 8 years, and I decided that I wanted to experience other things. I decided it was not compatible, it's not working out, and I wanted this to end. Unfortunately, things turned quite horrific, and it was a narcissistic relationship as well. He became very narcissistic towards the end. I don't know if that was part of my intention, seeing this relationship ending, that caused him to suddenly develop these very overt narcissistic tendencies. What was always perhaps covert and I didn't really notice before suddenly became overt, which meant that he subjected me to quite a bit of, I don't know what the word to say is, but trauma, shall we say, torture in a way, mental and unfortunately physical. I'm not going to go into the details of what happens. Perhaps a lot of you can put the pieces together, but needless to say, it's one of the worst things that you could encounter as a woman. And after that experience, which of course left me in a state of shock, despair, trauma, sadness, I was grieving the relationship, even though I wanted it over, because I had been so crushed by the way that he was treating me, the way he was acting. I had shifted into this state of being a victim to this sort of abuse, of losing sight of my self-worth and everything. I couldn't function. It was the most debilitating, and I've been in debilitating states before, states of depression and chronic anxiety. This was something else. And those of you who have suffered with PTSD will know what I'm talking about. The fear to go to sleep because of the nightmares that I would be bombarded with. I would not even go to my bed anymore because that's where the incidents had taken place. So I had a fear almost. It would trigger a lot of flashbacks. If I had gone into my bedroom and tried to sleep in my own bed, it just caused a lot of anxiety and discomfort. Going to bed crying, waking up crying, going out to the shops or trying to live my day to day, needing a friend to accompany me because I was often dissociating with what was going on. I would see things that would trigger a memory and then I would be back there again reliving it. And it was just awful. It was awful. And so in trying to recover from this, in my journey of recovery, I had noticed as well that the kind of relationships that I was encountering with other people, because I wanted to eventually, after the months were passing, I wanted to start to move on, to piece my life together and to encounter a healthy relationship in time, many months down the line. I did allow myself many months to heal from this. But what I did notice is that relationships were just not coming in. I was encountering loads of people who were avoidant in some way, who were unreliable, lack of communication, hot and cold, matching and unmatching, ghosting and all the rest of it. And it was I realized coming from this state that had really exacerbated these emotions of like fears of abandonment, wounds as well. Fell back into that state again, even though I've dealt with that in the past. And I would say obviously my experience and understanding of the law and my background in mental health as well really did help me. But, and this is something really important to remember. If you're occupying the state of any sort of trauma, any sort of mental health issue or any health issue for that matter, it's very difficult to see the wood from the trees. You're only going to see and experience life through that state. You're always looking through your eyes, not with your eyes. So I'm looking through the eyes of someone who was a victim to this abuse, someone who was suffering with PTSD, and this was what I was experiencing. This was what I was manifesting, behaviors and emotions within myself, thoughts, devastating thoughts, memories and flashbacks, nightmares. And then, of course, people shifting and changing and treating me a certain way as well, and seeing those shifts, particularly in relationships, because it had happened with him, because it had affected, as a result of what happened with him, it had affected my confidence with men and trust with men, and started to develop a little bit of a fear around men as well. So I was determined to fight all of this. But however, I did not do this alone. And I think it's really key to keep this in mind. So number one, don't try and do this on your own. Because you are looking at life through that state, it's going to be very difficult for you to come out of it and see a more objective perspective. And it was certainly the case for me. Post-traumatic stress, particularly, I was quite a severe state of it, apparently, according to the assessments that I was given. First primary care, and then when they decided that my situation was too severe for them, they put me through to secondary care, which is a longer term therapy here in the UK, longer term intervention. And so they assessed me. It was quite a high state of PTSD, quite a high score, I should say. And I was told that I was going to be suffering with this for the longest time and going to need many, many years of support. However, I didn't accept that. I disregarded that. This was not going to be my label for the rest of my life. And even though I was in such a terrible way, I still needed that external support, but I still knew that I'm not going to be like this for the longest time. I know and I'm aware of how to shift my state of being. But right now, I need some help. I need some support. So I did seek out therapy, and I did have that intervention for quite a few months, actually. And it was really, really helpful in seeing the objective reality, seeing it from a more objective perspective, which allowed me to detach from a lot of the anchors that I was having and the limiting beliefs that I had created as a result of going through this trauma and occupying this state. My therapist was really good at getting me to see this alternative perspective, seeing myself as less of a victim and empowering myself, taking away the guilt and the shame that I was made to feel and shifting my state again, building up on my self-worth. He did an exercise with me where he subjected me to my bedroom and made me talk my way through it. And then what we did was we imagined what had happened, and he got me to reframe the event to what I would have preferred had I, because during something like that, I felt I had not only my dignity taken from me, I had my voice, I had everything taken from me at that moment. And so if I'm to occupy a state of being empowered, building up my self-worth, taking back my dignity, how would I have preferred this scene to have gone? So I reframed it, and he took me through an imaginal act that then got me to see and feel and hear myself saying to my ex everything that I had wished to have said, everything that I wanted to say and get off my chest. Sound familiar? Very, very much like revision, except I've got a guided revision on my YouTube. If any of you have gone through some sort of traumatic event or some sort of event that caused this illness, caused this condition, you can always go back and revise it and reframe it. I mean, in this case, I didn't revise it because you can revise these incidents to be something completely different to what had happened. It's about revising it into something that feels natural, that you can accept as the new memory to replace this old one. However, what had happened to me was too devastating for me to have just revised it and pretended like it never happened. I couldn't do that. And I wasn't about to do that either. It was going to cause too much of an argument within myself. I found it easier and a lot less, because I'm always working with the least resistance, try and get the most effective and quickest change possible. Least resistance was for me to reframe it, to have said the things that I wish to have said, to have accepted that this happened to me, but this is my stance on it. This is how I choose to see it, not from the point of view as a victim, not from the point of view as someone who was disempowered, who was treated in such an abysmal way, but actually taking back my power from this situation and remembering who I am. I would incorporate anything that my therapist had told me, and I would incorporate the spiritual laws and my understanding of it as well into this situation to help me to heal. I would feel out the emotions. That's another thing I did. That was step 2. Feeling out the emotions, which a lot of people really struggle to do in whatever you're manifesting. But I notice with specific person manifestations, a lot of us are suppressing a lot of these emotions. You've gone through trauma, you're suppressing it, you're trying to block it out. Many of you are trying to affirm over your negative thoughts. Many of you are trying to flip your thoughts all of the time. I can't be negative, I can't be crying because I'm ruining my healing, I'm ruining my manifestation of my SP come back, I'm manifesting more negativity. We can't think this way, we're going to be driving ourselves mad. And a lot of the times you have many, many negative thoughts, and many of them do not manifest. It's not the thought, the negative thought, that's going to manifest. It's stuff that is coming from the state, and the thoughts are an element of that state coming to the surface. And yes, it was horrible and it was heartbreaking, and I allowed myself that time to cry because I had to go through a grieving process. I had to grieve this ending and how it happened. I had to grieve my old state and start to then be reborn into this new state. I had to grieve the person that I thought my ex was, the good side, the mask that he was wearing that I believed was real, and grieve the fact that that person never existed. Those of you who have been in narcissistic relationships would know what I'm talking about as well. Really devastating. But I would cry, I would vent, I would rage, I would cry some more. If I just felt like I couldn't do anything, I would allow myself to do that. And I would treat myself with kindness. I would take myself into my imaginal acts. But in the interim, it was very, very hard for me to shift and to really feel out the experience and to accept it, because I was still in too much pain. And that's something that I'm not fighting. I was just gently persuading myself, gently reminding myself of this state of being that I could have. And this state that I wanted to occupy was that of someone who was healed. And so when I would then, after grieving and crying it out, part again of my healing process, to use my imagination, which is how I manifest everything. So for me, it was about, what would I be doing? What would I be saying? How would I be acting if I was healed of this particular issue? I could see myself going on my social media, funny enough, and sharing my story of how I had healed, how I'd come out from the other side. I would see myself in visions of me and my friends talking to me saying, "Oh my God, you look so much better. You were healed. You've done so well to heal in this fastest time." You see, these statements that were being made in my imaginal act was suggesting that I healed really fast, I healed really well, became perfectly healthy, and I'm there thanking them and telling them how great it was, and I'm so relieved to not have these burdens, these traumas, this PTSD attached to me anymore. I also detached myself from the label. I was very reluctant to keep on stating that I have this and I am that, and to accept it as my state. Many of you will get a diagnosis from a doctor, physician, therapist, and we do accept that diagnosis, and it becomes part of our identity, what we identify as, because it's coming from a person of authority, someone who we trust, someone who we know that they must know something about this, right? And they're positioned higher than us, they've got more knowledge than us, so therefore we must accept what they are saying. It's quite the natural process for a lot of us in this. We accept it, but I refuse to accept it. I refuse to accept that, okay, I had scored high on the assessment sheet. I refuse to accept what they were telling me about how long it was going to take for me to heal. I didn't want this all of my life. I didn't want this for many years of my life. I didn't want to encounter these dysfunctional relationships and this difficulty in my life every single day as a result of occupying this state. This is a state. I am not the state. I am the traveler of the state, and I occupied this state. Okay, but I can remove myself from it, and I'm not going to associate with this. A lot of us get labeled with all sorts of things, of OCD and ADHD and PTSD, all this letters everywhere. What does it really mean? It's good to get a diagnosis, of course, and you can understand it, but don't make that who you are at the very core of it. Do not identify with it. As I did, I would detach from it, knowing that it was a state and knowing that I could shift and change. I'm not this person. What else have I not mentioned? Oh, yes, actually, for those of you as well who are manifesting health, anything, this could be physical as well as mental health, I would recommend Joseph Murphy's work, which is actually my perfect person, had reminded me. And I realized that Joseph Murphy talks a lot more about health manifestation than Neville Goddard does. And so I had studied Joseph's work many years ago, but then fell into Neville and sort of remained there. He does talk a lot about overcoming any sort of health issue, and of course that it just all coming from the mind. Essentially, your body, your immune system, its natural state is to be healthy. It's not to have any physical illness or ailments. And a lot of these physical illnesses that we encounter come from the mind, and it comes from suppressed emotions. And that's another reason why we shouldn't be suppressing any of our emotions from any of these traumas and incidences that we encounter. Don't suppress it. Feel it out, invite it in, accept it in. This is my current state now. It's not my permanent state, but fine, accept it. Let me feel it all out. Let me tend to these emotions. If I need therapeutic support, or if I just need to vent it, or hypnosis, or whatever I might need, let me get this out, because these suppressed emotions then manifest as these illnesses. It causes dis-ease in the body, and this is how diseases are formed. This is disease, dis-ease within ourselves. And so removing this from ourselves helps us to heal as well. That's why I always say, feel it out. Don't fight it. Don't affirm it. Don't affirm over it. Don't flip your thoughts. Don't suppress it. Let it out. It's the easiest, well, it's not the easiest, but it's the quickest way to heal. Although it feels horrible, it really is the most effective way. Just, okay, accept it, path of least resistance, and that's what we want as well. So maybe some of you might feel comforted in checking out some of Joseph Murphy's work as well, because I know I felt quite comforted as well, reminding myself of some of his lectures too with regards to that. Having a therapy animal. Coco was my biggest support. He saved me, essentially. And if any of you have got pets, I do recommend that as well. Getting over any sorts of therapy, any sorts of traumas, stresses, things like that. They really are wonderful, wonderful. So he was a wonderful support, made a huge difference in my healing journey. What else? The last thing I did, so I've talked about these different stages that I went through, of course, using manifestation, but also utilizing modality of therapy to heal, feeling it out, allowing myself to go through the grieving process, therapy dog, reframing, so revising as well, the importance of revision. So another thing was a sense of purpose. So what I discovered later on down the line was that the PTSD, the strength of emotion, the fight or flight that it put me in, took me out of the state of procrastinating and fear about going international with my business, and put me in this, well, it's life or death. I either do this now, or I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to, so it actually threw me into this drive mode, and I threw myself into my work. And what was fantastic was that this trauma further helped me to help other people who have gone through traumas, and to help them to heal themselves as well, either for their specific person manifestation or love manifestation, because it was causing a hindrance, it was causing a recurring pattern for many of them in their relationships. So either for that reason, or that they just wanted to be healed, just to have healing all over, physical healing. Some of them had issues with their health that they had dragged up for so many years, and we managed to heal that through fixing and reframing and dealing with this trauma, rather than having this all so suppressed within us and manifesting in these conditions. And purpose for me was a massive healer in itself, because it felt so good to be able to turn something that was absolutely horrific into something that could help other people to heal. There's nothing more rewarding to me. Plus, doing my dream role. This has been my dream role, to do this and to share my experiences. I absolutely, in the beginning, I really dove into it and buried myself into it, and I would do hours and hours of content and lives on TikTok and various things like that, conversing with other people, helping other people, meeting other people. It really did help to take me away from this victim mode and sad and depressed all the time. And as I was healing more and more, I was able to heal others more and more, and it just took me completely out of this state, and I found my self-worth again, and my dignity and everything else all came back, and I occupied that state, coming into a place of more strength, stronger than I have ever been. So there's always something positive to be taken from these situations, as detrimental as they might feel at the time. It's just a state of being. You are not the state itself. You can heal. Absolutely. All of you are capable of healing, no matter what your situation is, a physical ailment or a mental health issue. But I know this particular video, I did focus more on the mental health aspect, PTSD in particular for me, and how I overcame this using manifestation and modalities of therapy and other things. Purpose is really key as well. Find something you love, find something you are passionate in. Turn this all around, and your mindset all around about what happened to you. See it from an alternative perspective. Now I don't view it as such a detrimental thing that happened, but something that needed to happen for my manifestations to come to fruition. 3 of my major manifestations. This is something that needed to happen, that has set me off in the direction that I wish to go in, and has made me stronger than I ever have been. So I hope that all of you found this helpful in some way, was managed to take something from this. Please don't go through this journey on your own, especially when it comes to your mental health. Do seek out that external support as well, to get that objective viewpoint, to have that additional emotional support. Reach out to your friends and family also, and don't feel alone in this, because you're certainly not. And don't feel stuck in this, okay? This is not who you are. You are God's source, infinite universe, whatever you want to call it. You are all of these things and more. You can be whatever you wish to be. Don't stick with any labels you have been given. I'm sending you guys loads of love, and thank you so much for joining me in this video.